This is Eric Rattan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
You have tuned in to a conversation between myself and one of the all-time guitar greats. I'm talking about Joe Satriani, one of the original shredders. He's inspired entire movements and, as you'll soon hear, a revolution in extreme metal. Now, the conversation was brought about due to the launch of a new solo album from the great man. It is titled The Elephants of Mars. Now, as a treat, if you are listening via the podcast apps, that being Spotify, Apple Music, and God knows however many others are out there, you will soon hear Sailing the Seas of Ganymede. If you have tuned in via YouTube, fantastic, but we won't be able to hear the song. We'll cut to the conversation right now. So again, via the podcast apps, here is Sailing the Seas of Ganymede, taken from the new album, The Elephants of Mars. On YouTube, well, here is the man himself. Let's go.
Can you hear me all right?
Satch, I can indeed. How are you?
Very good. Just getting that phone back in its harness there. All right.
I love the quiver of axes you got behind there. It's so great to see that they're a part of the family, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm always looking for that one guitar that is going to, feel the most comfortable that particular day. You never know, which guitar is going to talk to you. So yeah, I'm constantly bringing them out and going, oh yeah, I love this one.
How many guitars? Here's a good question for you to start things off. How many guitars, not that you currently own, but do you think you've owned over the years?
Oh, yeah. Wow. No one's ever asked me that one. That's a tough one to know. I'm going to say that it's funny. I didn't have a lot of guitars up until, I don't know, maybe around 2000 when I started thinking I really wanted to experiment with some different kinds of guitars. So up until then, I had maybe 4 or 5 or 10 maybe. I was totally uninterested because I used to work in a guitar store that was a vintage guitar store, and I got totally turned off to that whole way of being a collector. I just couldn't care less. And that's why I started building my own guitars from scratch. I thought, I just don't want to be part of the whole vintage scene. But yeah, so like I said, around 2000 it started. I think we've never had more than 200 guitars in the inventory. And I should point out that probably for every JS model, there's been maybe 6 to 7 prototypes that really look horrible. I mean, like, all the wrong color parts and pieces that we thought would be cool. And then we put it together and we go, oh, that doesn't work, But, I would wind up with them and they just sit there in the main facility for years. So yeah, I don't know, 1,000 guitars. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that.
It's an incalculable number. I'll get it out. There you go.
But I mean, cheers for you, because that's the most original question I've ever gotten.
It must be. I've done almost 700 interviews at this point, right across the spectrum of rock, heavy metal. Al Anderson from the Wailers, these sorts of people. Yeah. I'm a guitarist and a bassist, but I listened back to some of the interviews that are being conducted, and it just feels like as though the people who are asking you questions rely on your legacy as opposed to doing their research about what you're doing now. Do you find that?
Yeah, very often. I get the same questions over and over again. But, you learn, I think, as a performer to respect the fact that these people have gone out of their way to come and see you or talk to you. It's just one small moment in their life that's very interesting and rich. And the fact that you're going to be part of it is really special. So I tread carefully and I tell the truth and do my best.
That is probably the most profound way I've ever heard that. I've asked that question a few times, but I reckon I'll hand that to you there. That's the most profound commentary I've had attributed to that scenario, right. I think. And because you get it clearly, you're the one up there on stage. We are fans. I saw you in 2012, that magnificent G3 show that you did with Steve, the two Steves.
And Steve.
What do you remember about that particular? I mean, I'll definitely ask questions about the brilliant new album, by the way. But that particular tour, was that a good one for you? That 2012 G3 Australian tour?
Oh, it was so much fun! Oh my God! I mean, one thing, it's always great to play with Steve Vai. I mean, we just have a very we just have a very brotherly connection. And we can't help but pinch ourselves every time we're on stage together, because fresh in our minds, it was just yesterday we were 2 little high school kids in my backyard sitting on the ground playing guitars, thinking like, one of these days we'll be grown-ups and we'll be playing all around the world. So it's really special. And if you've ever hung around Steve Lukather, you know that your face will hurt after about 10 minutes from laughing harder than you've ever laughed before. And he's wonderfully relentless with keeping the mood up and keeping you laughing. So, and then he plays, his musicianship is just, it's at the top, he's really an amazing musician. and it's always great to play with him.
Yeah, I love the show. I was at the Brisbane performance. Yeah, I tell you who I was impressed by was your bassist that you had that night, the fellow with the long hair that's very animated. I haven't done. Yeah, who was that?
Was that? Was it really tall?
Yes, really tall.
That would have been Alan Whitman. I think he had really long hair at the time. Played a P bass, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Alan and I go way back. Alan used to play with. Who did he play with? Did he play with the Lloyds? And no, he played with. I can't remember. But when I was in the Squares, we did a lot of clubs together. I mean, it was tough slugging it out in the clubs, but I always really loved Alan. Great musician, great attitude. He wound up being a journalist, a writing partner with my webmaster, John Luini, for many years. And then he started playing with the Mermen, a great sort of psychedelic surf band here in San Francisco. And that's when I reached out to him, actually. Jeff Campitelli and I went to see him play at the Independent in San Francisco when he was playing with the Mermen. And I just really loved his attitude, so much energy and force. Yeah. And he really seemed to tap into what the guitar player was doing and what he needed to be able to create that hypnotic modern surf sound. And, because a lot of musicians, they go out there and they just want to do their thing, no matter what anybody else in the band is doing, But Alan's always been really great at really plugging into the band and doing the best thing for the band. And anyway, so yeah, that was a great moment. We did an album together and a bunch of touring around the world. And it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of fun to watch it, too. So, look, I've got so little time with you, but that means I've got to sort of condense things in. So I'm going to get stuck into talking about the album because the new album. Look, the presser says it's your 19th, but I count 18. So that'll be the first question. Is it your 18th or your 19th solo album?
I have no idea. This controversy started a number of albums ago, and I think it had to do with the fact that do you count Dreaming Number 11 as a studio album because there's one studio track on it? Or and then at some point, I think the publishers and the record company said we should count it, and then the number jumped up. So we've just been saying 19, but I don't think it really matters one way or the other to me.
Yeah, look, they're your albums. They can be 18. This can be the 18th or the 19th, But the point is, Satch, is that look, it is one album amongst the hundreds of releases upon which you have appeared, and look, everything you've ever done is just rolled gold quality. What is present on this album here is everything that fans love about your playing. I believe I'm an old fan. Go right back to the late 80s when I was a young fella. You were one of the first rock and metal artists I was certainly aware of, courtesy of surfing the Alien album, killer album that got so many of us into rock and heavy metal. It is a gateway album. But look, something else far beyond the shred, you've always known how to compose a song, and that's crucial. And you've mentioned this already, but you give the musicians plenty of room to shine in a way, like you're talking about your bassist there that you worked with in 2012. But look, I have read the presser, and apparently this is a unique album. But just for people listening, why is this a unique album for you?
Well, I certainly started with a premise and a set of rules for myself that were the strongest I had ever, put in front of myself. And basically, I said, I got to write better songs, come up with more creative arrangements, get better guitar sounds, play better guitar, get a team together that understands and joins me in this goal to try to make an outstanding album that will be ahead of the rest of them in the catalog. And I know that's a small ask of yourself, but I thought, the pandemic has sidelined me, and now is the time. I have no excuse. I can't say like, oh my God, I've been touring for 18 months. I have no time to write, the next epic album. I had all the time in the world, and my job is to make music for people. So I just got busy at my job. And then, like everybody else in the world, oh my God, there was so much to write about. There was just so much intensity of daily life, from good to bad. So I just poured myself into it, and I didn't stop until I got results that I thought were outstanding. We had, on our side, we had no time clock. We had no date on the calendar. So I gave myself weeks to figure out how to approach playing small parts, difficult parts. When I sent files around the world, I said, take your time. If you want to spend a couple of weeks trying to figure out your angle, go right ahead. I don't want to rush you. Only send the stuff back that you think is what you would love to hear. And that really enriched the album, because everybody got a chance to shine. Their personalities really come through. You really hear Kenny, Brian, Ray, and Eric really having an influence on the album, which is what I thought would answer that second goal, which is to have more creative arrangements. And that means making room for people who are really great to shine through.
You've always done that, though. I've got to say, I've noticed that is yes, the shredders there, the epic playing, but across your albums, they're devoid of ego, which is a crazy thing, really, because of your ability on the guitar. But do you find that the musicians that you choose to work with, do you have to seek them out, or are they drawn to you?
I've always just operated in my own little world. And then when I get an idea, I start making phone calls or sending text messages out to find out if people are interested. And you never know. I mean, I remember I think I was in an airport somewhere, and I was thinking about what I was going to do for my next album. And it just dawned on me that, wouldn't it be great if I had like somebody who played guitar and understood guitar, but was a killer keyboard player. And I'm just, sitting there waiting for my plane, and I get this thought like, Mike Keneally, I've stood right next to him on stage. Of course, I should give him a call. Maybe Steve's not using them right now. I don't know. So I just sent him an email as I'm sitting there waiting for my plane. And I got an email right back. And Mike's like, hi, Joe. Yeah, I'm available. What do you have in mind? And I thought, great. And so it happened quite organically and really fast, from idea to reaching out to somebody and to getting a positive response. And of course, Mike wound up in the band for many years. We did a lot of great stuff. And I was able to give him a lot of real estate on the albums because he's an amazing musician.
Something else I noticed, it sounds like you worked in the Phrygian dominant mode more on this album than in the past. And, in particular, Doors of Perception is probably my favorite cut across the album.
Great.
Yeah. Is that the case? Did you consciously start working in these different Eastern sounding modes?
No, I think that's just an accident. I just composed a lot of material. Probably over 20 pieces were at some point in contention for the album. But like any other album project, as the weeks go by, you start to sort of eliminate certain songs because maybe you just couldn't finish them, or they didn't turn out like you thought, or maybe the response from the band makes you feel like it's not something that they're really jumping at, And it's, as the leader, you want to make sure you bring stuff in to the project that is going to inspire the band as well. And then you start to manage the idea of the album as a whole project, as an artistic statement. And then you go, oh, that song, that doesn't belong in this overall statement. It's a great song. Maybe save it for the next album, or trade it with a friend or something like that. Yes. It's basically what happens is it just gets, pushed to the side of the desk. And there were a lot of songs that, there was the yes pile and the no pile, and the pages like went back and forth many times. The first song, Sahara, was a song that I wrote for Ray Thistlethwaite to sing. And I sent lyrics and a demo with me trying to play guitar like a vocalist. And I could tell that the response was not, super fantastic. So I put it on the no pile. And then my producer, after a few weeks, said, oh, that's got to go back on the yes pile. Just rewrite it for instrumental. So it took me a few weeks to get rid of that vocal melody and to rewrite the melody so that it worked for the electric guitar. And the opposite would have been, as you said, the doors of perception. I woke up one day with an idea and a feeling, and I just took out the acoustic guitar. I made a loop banging on the guitar and everything. And then I recorded that piece. It was so fast. So sometimes it goes really quick and everybody jumps on it and it's, an easy track to get going.
I'll tell you another track that sounded like it was easy to get going, but the playing is just magnificent, is Seas of Ganymede, Sailing the Seas of Ganymede, I think it's called.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, the bass in that one there. So with your bassist, do you work on rhythms together to come up with that, or can you tell me how that song evolved?
That song was an older piece of music that I had been working on, and I was just it was one of those songs that wasn't entirely finished, and I just kept waiting for that one other component. When I brought it, this is actually a funny story. When I brought it to the band, I sent it to Ray, and at the time he was either in Tasmania or in Australia touring with Thirsty Merc, and I must have not been clear in my direction, but I said, put a solo on here, whatever you want to do. And I thought he picked the spot that I had laid out for him. But he sent back the song with a brilliant solo in the wrong place. But once I heard it, I just told Eric, you know what, let's just leave it right there. Because Ray must have put it there for some reason. He must, he's a great musician. He must have some instinct. Let's just leave it. I'll rewrite the second half of the song so that it makes sense with Ray's solo. So, sometimes that happens. And I think we got Ray on there first. No, sorry. We got a Kenny playing drums first, and working with my demo bass. And then once we've sorted out all of Kenny's performance, because he would give us 5 different versions of what he thought could work. And we'd be spoiled for choice, Then we sent it to Brian, and Brian could carefully look at the whole thing and he'd go, okay, there's Joe, there's new Kenny, here's Ray's crazy thing in the wrong spot. I got to make sense of this. And, eventually pulled it all together. And then I actually added some rhythm guitars in the end and one little melody. So it did go back and forth a lot until we thought everything about it was perfect.
Yeah, it is. It's a fantastic song. There's not a note out of place. There's not a beat that shouldn't be where it is when you listen back to it. Even the length of the song, fantastic work. Yeah. Look, I'm just very conscious of the fact I've probably got another 4 minutes with you.
Okay.
Gosh, so many questions I'd love to ask you. But look, I'm gonna give you a compliment that I don't believe you've ever been issued before.
Okay.
You are one of the people that helped spearhead the death and black metal revolution, and I'll explain. Oh. Okay. Your tutoring and mentorship for Larry Lalonde was extremely important because Larry's guitar playing has gone on to be, it was at the time, it wasn't seen as much, to be honest with you, but looking back, it was revolutionary, okay, because of how the speed, it was beyond Slayer, because he was incorporating a lot of that Zappa-esque stuff. It was being far beyond the whammy bar, I call it. Yeah. Do you have any awareness of death and black metal insofar as, do you listen to it? Is it music that you appreciate if you don't listen to it?
Oh man, I was there when it was starting up. I remember teaching at Secondhand Guitars, and I had all these young kids, some of them not even teenagers yet, and that was their reality. And then I had a couple of kids who were going to be pros, like Larry, Alex Skolnick, Kirk Hammett, of course, and a number of others that were in local bands. And that was their generation's music. And, as a teacher, I was very careful not to influence them in any way, because even though I was just a couple of years older, when you're at that age, a couple of years is a big deal. So I was a grown up, I was a rock and roll guy, and I could tell that, during the lessons, I had to tread carefully not to change them, just to supply them with the necessary information so that they could continue going along their way. I remember recording with Possessed, and John Cunabert, also my good friend and producer, engineer of many records with me. He had a really big hand in shaping the sound of that album, because the two of us agreed that what we were hearing from the beginning of that movement was just too much reverb and delay. And it was only because the studios had it, you know, they had a reverb unit. So they turned it on to cover up the fact that either these bands couldn't play or the songs weren't good or anything. But we got to work with these guys and we thought, let's just make it dry and in your face, and let's work on the arrangements of the songs, help them tighten them up, and then just record the best performances of every parts of the songs and edit it together to make something they were really happy with. And I mean, we had 6 days, and the singer had strep throat, and one of the guitar players was pretty drunk and had to be sent home. It wasn't ideal, but we had Larry, who was so focused, and he was so funny and free. And, it was really, that part of it was great.
Thank you on behalf of all death and black metal and extreme metal fans indeed for doing what you just mentioned. You didn't pen people in. Alex, one of the greatest thrash and heavy metal guitarists ever. You didn't send them down a road where you beat the metal out of them. I went through it myself as a young fella. I want to play Faith No More songs. And, of course, the bass teacher gave me Eagles. Now, I appreciate the Eagles now, but I didn't when I was 14. I hated them.
Yeah.
But that's your very, very significant role in the evolution of music. And I've got to say, it's, people who don't understand it look at it from the outside and think, oh, it's devil music or what have you. But this is music that's intrinsically important to people's day-to-day. And you've had a huge role in that. So I just wanted to thank you for doing that.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I think I better wrap things up. Again, thank you for doing what you've been doing for so long. Congratulations on an epic career. You've just got such a great aura around you, Satch. I've loved listening to you over the years and hope to see you down here again soon.
Thank you. I hope to be there soon. All right.
Thanks, mate. Catch you.
Bye.
Nowhere near enough time to talk to the great man about his magnificent accomplishments across decades of a guitar playing career. Yeah, really admire Satch. He's just a fella that has followed his muse. He has very little, no perceptible ego. Do you agree? Talking to one of the most accomplished guitarists in history, and there's no perceptible ego there. He just reminds you of your very cool uncle. Well, I'm in my mid-40s, so for someone of my vintage, I reckon that's the case. If you like what you heard, go across to scarsandguitars.com and there are many more conversations just like it for you to wrap your ears around. I was going to say sink your teeth into. Wrap your ears around is a better way of framing it. But if you're more inclined to read books, I don't blame you because I write them. And I've written one in particular that I want to talk about. Scars and Guitars Volume 1. It's a bit of a manifesto. I put together around about 60 entries featuring 90 conversations culled from almost 700 at this point, almost 700 conversations that I've conducted for this indie journalism venture since 2017. Go across to scarsandguitars.com, follow the links, and you can easily download a sample from Amazon, Apple, Google. It's all there. And I want to tell you even more about it, so please stick around. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast. That was a conversation with the great Joe Satriani, and this is me telling you a little bit more about my book. Ciao for now.
This is Eric Rattan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew Mackay-Smith.
I've been the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast since 2017. The first musician I interviewed for the show was David Vincent from Morbid Angel, and things have just snowballed from there. In all, I've posted almost 650 podcast episodes featuring conversations with many of the leading lights of rock, heavy metal, and beyond. It just got to a point where I thought, I need to write a book about all this, so that's exactly what I did. In Scars and Guitars Volume 1, you'll read a heap of deep reveals and commentary, such as Des Fafara talking about Coal Chamber and why the band will never return.
If you're a band just starting out, you need to hear me. Do not start a band with partners. Ever.
Yeah, wise words there. Sage advice, mate, for anybody.
Don't ever, because I can't go do Coal Chamber right now unless I get others involved.
Phil Anselmo talks about the episode in his career which gives him the greatest sense of accomplishment.
I think the staying power of the fans and the staying power of the songs, whether it's Pantera, Down, or Superjoint, the fans remember the songs.
Alex Skolnick from Testament confirms that, yes, playing the guitar in Ozzy's band is anything but an ordinary gig. Will Silent Oz from Dimmu Borgir write a book? Pa from Sabaton gives advice to people who want to start a band.
Look at the team around you, look at the bandmates. If the guys want to be on the stage, then it's all cool. If the guys want to be backstage, then it's not going to be cool.
Current and former members of Cradle of Filth discuss the band's seminal 90s material. Read about the reaction to George Lynch and Mark from Suicide Silence's comments when they throw shade at then President Donald Trump.
We have this idiotic monster, this egotistical, self-aggrandizing, complete piece of shit in there. I just can't understand how we've gotten to this place.
And yeah, we kicked a hornet's nest with Sepultura. Percussive overlord Gene Hoglan talks about recording with Chuck Schuldiner.
Chuck was always, he was very, very open-minded, and he was into having his musicians that were playing with him just reach out for the best stuff that they had.
Phil Campbell from Motorhead discusses what it takes to get sober. John Five answers his critics who dismiss his tenure with Marilyn Manson.
My name is John Five, and Manson gave me that name, and I had some of the best years of my life in that band and learned a lot.
And we get the lowdown on Treyarch Zagtoth from those who would know, including his mother. All across Scars and Guitars Volume 1, there are moments of tension, relief, tragedy, exhilaration, and throughout it all, you'll obtain insight that I believe no one else has managed to obtain from many of your favourite artists. So treat yourself. Scars and Guitars Volume 1 is currently available as an ebook with a print edition on the horizon. Follow the links attached and download a sample. I'm sure you'll be compelled to read the whole book.